Hi. Here I'm going to share with you a practice that can take a variety of forms that you can curate so that it is most responsive to your needs and interests. That is called Doorways to Gratitude. And it builds on a practice that I've been sharing now for a number of years called the present moment pivot. To understand and get the most out of this, I believe it will be helpful to have a brief recap of what the present moment pivot refers to and the present moment pivot point practice. That's present moment pivot point practice, not meant to be a tongue twister. Present moment pivot, or PMP, refers very generally to a shift that one makes out of what we could say is a more automatic pilot mode, one that might be characterized by distractedness or being lost in thought or simply being, doing something very routinized, even if very skillfully, but not particularly cognizant of, we could say, mindfulness isn't as strong as it could be in that moment because of the narrower or lost in thought nature of the mind and mental activity. And so the present moment pivot is a shift out of that to a more present, awake, alert state of noticing what's taking place in real time that we could refer to as being a bit more mindfully centered or mindfully aware. So the present moment pivot is making that transition. It can be done spontaneously. We could say that that's sort of the objective, to just have it where when we get pulled away and lost in thought, in particular ruminating over the past, catastrophizing over the future, or the many variations on those themes, we're able to realize that we have been sort of pulled away, and we are able to, in that realization, decide intentionally where to direct our attention. The present moment pivot can also be happening as a practice. It can be done not because one spontaneously emerges from a state of automaticity in terms of the cognitive processes at play and the levels of present moment awareness, but one can train in having more of that real-time capacity through what I share as a series of present moment pivot point practices. And the one I usually start with is finding a specific spot outside your home. And when you leave your home in the morning, or when you leave your home at least once a day, when you get to that point, that present moment pivot point, to pause, which generally means come to a stop, relax, which tends to be something like taking a slower breath, and then open, which at the start is sort of to look around and take in your view. And each of those, the pausing, the settling or relaxing, and the opening, can be done in very different ways. The pausing could be slowing down, it could be coming to a stop. There's many ways that this pause, but it's this intentional shifting of that nature. The settling or the relaxing is this intentional something to create a slightly steadier or more relaxed state, like a slower, deeper breath, but it can take many forms. And then the opening is sort of opening to what's there, and that can take many forms. So that's the present moment pivot point practice. And I'm presuming if you're watching this, that's familiar to you. And there's many reasons why doing that practice on a regular basis takes all of 2 seconds, 3 seconds, can become very helpful for sort of opening up many possibilities in the mindfulness training and sort of the landscape of cultivation of greater present moment awareness. Now, the purpose of this particular video segment is to now share with you all a different application of the present moment pivot point practice, which I encourage you to keep very simple, even though you might have a mind that sees the myriad possibilities and wants to try to apply them all. But I'm encouraging pick one. And so what it is it's a natural present moment pivot point that is always available to us wherever we go. For the most part, is a door. You open a door to come home, you open a door to leave home, you open a door to get to work or get to school, to go to the bathroom. We're constantly opening doors. And one of the purposes of the present moment pivot practice is to be able to insert into it, especially in that open aspect, pause, settle, open, something that is useful. And the pausing sort of creates a little bit of the space or temporal opportunity for that. The settling sort of allows us to be a little bit more relaxed or steady for it. And then the it is the opening too. And in this practice, it's opening to gratitude. And a lot can be said on how it is that if we can take a few moments here and there through any of a variety of means and experience a little bit more gratitude, or cultivate or express a little more gratitude, that can be very beneficial in a variety of ways. So if that's of interest to you, here's an application of the present moment pivot point practice to accomplish that, which I have found to be immensely useful over many years. And that is to pick one door. Maybe it's the door to your home coming home. Maybe it's the door to the library at school, or to your building where you work, or to your church or temple or mosque, or to your car. It can be any door. And when you understand where this is going, and you might already have a sense of where it's going, you will creatively come up with a solution, an application that is meaningful for you. But I'll give you one example. I work at the University of Miami. Oftentimes, to get to my office, I will open or have opened, because it can be sometimes automatic, the door to the library. When I reach for the door, oftentimes it can be a tactile piece that is the way I usually experience this, because I'm usually opening a door. But when I walk through or open the door to walk through the library, I pause, which can just, in this case, usually means just slowing down ever so slightly, so it's not even detectable to somebody who might be behind me who's walking, for example. Take a slower, deeper breath. I do that as I'm walking. And then I will think to myself, I'm grateful to get to work here. Or I'm grateful to get to work with these students or for my colleagues. It'll just come to me, but it'll be something about grateful as it relates to the work I do. And sometimes it could just be the same thing. I'm grateful, to be working here, or I'm grateful for this job, or I'm grateful to get to explore mindfulness, with students. And that would just be a regular, every day when I get to the office and I go through those doors, I just, in a span of a second or two, what's the word? It just opens to gratitude. Of course, variations can be when I go home at the end of the day and I open the door to the building where we live, I might do the same thing and say grateful to have a home. Or when I get to the door of our front door, I might, feel grateful or think grateful for my family. So as I said a few moments ago, there's doors everywhere, and you could go a little crazy if every door you were to try to figure this out. I do think in time, it's nice to carry a current of gratitude, these sort of saltatory sort of jumps throughout the day. So that, it's not just once, but maybe it is leaving home, getting to the office, getting to your car. What might you say if you have a car and you get into your car? Grateful to have a car. Or if you get on the bus or a metro, grateful for transportation. So it's a very easy, you don't have to plan it, you don't have to think about what you're going to say, you just have to remember to do it. And I strongly encourage picking one door and beginning there. Ideally, it just becomes spontaneous. It's not effortful, but at the beginning, it might take a little bit of planning, because you probably will find that even though it sounds like a good idea and it seems like it's effortless and takes no time, you'll keep forgetting. That's, by the way, why we begin with the present moment pivot point practice outside of one's home. That can take a week or 2 or 3 to sort of get going, because it is so easy to forget. So there's a little bit of strategizing, a little bit of intentionality that helps make that more of a reality. It will, that practice, ripple out in many, many advantageous ways. And this would be an example of a practice that could stand on its own, but also one that if you happen to have been doing the present moment pivot in that form that I spoke of originally, would make it even a little easier as you then add another point to remember and then to begin to integrate that into your day. All right, I hope this is helpful. Wishing you well.